Welcome to the NextCycle Michigan Flows Track Launch webinar. We're excited to have everyone here with us today. I'm Melissa Radwan. I'm the Director of Marketing for RRS, and I will be your technology host this afternoon. We have a few housekeeping issues that we would like to walk you through before we get started. First up, all attendees are muted, so we can't hear you, but we want to hear from you. So please use the Q&A button at the bottom of your navigation panel to submit your questions, not the chat box. That's going to be used for something else. Please use the Q&A button to submit those questions. Going to organize it nice and neat for our panelists to answer at the end of the session today. Also want to make everyone aware that we are recording this webinar today, and it will be available next week on nextcyclemichigan.com. And right now I'd like to introduce Bryce Hesterman. He will be your moderator this afternoon. He is a senior consultant with RRS and one of the lead planners for the NextCycle Michigan Flows Track. Bryce, welcome and take it away.
Yeah, thanks, Melissa. Appreciate that, and welcome everyone. So here we're just going to talk through the agenda real quick. We got a lot to cover, and we want to get to the bulk of it. So we've already checked off number one, the welcome and housekeeping. We're going to kick it over to Matt Flechter to do an introduction, and then I'm going to come back and give a summary of the flows track. And then we're going to have a couple of project examples, one from Emmett County and one from Country Oaks Landscaping. Then we're going to wrap things up with some information on how to apply for this, and then cover some Q&A at the very end. So we have 60 minutes to cover this, a lot to handle, and so I'm going to, without further ado, going to kick it over to Matt Flechter, who's the Recycling Market Development Specialist for the Michigan Department of Energy, Great Lakes and the Environment, EGLE. Matt?
Hey, Bryce, thanks. It's nice to be doing this webinar. We've done two different tracks. We've got the micros track that came out a couple weeks ago, and we've got the flows track launching today. And first I want to say thank you to all of you. The work that you're doing already in this organic space is so important. In 2015, we did we created the Michigan Recycling Index to look at some data related to how we could achieve doubling our recycling rate. And it became very apparent. J.D. Lindenberg from RRS stood on stage and said, we're not going to get to doubling our recycling rate or even a respectable number if we don't talk about organics. And it's been really interesting over the past 6 or so years that organics has really finally gotten some of the respect it deserves. And I think a lot of that is because of the work that I see some of the names on this webinar, so the work that you're doing, the work that Amy and Lindsay have done to grow the organic space, to educate people about the importance of managing organic materials differently, and then the economic and environmental benefits of managing organics in a way that is environmentally and economically sound. NextCycle is a platform to connect you with the technical resources and the funding that's needed to see your projects be successful. We are fully engaged and involved in making sure that we're addressing the organics issue as a primary goal of managing our materials differently. And it's thanks to this team and so many more involved in the organic space that are making helping to make Michigan a leader in recycling and composting. So we'll come back to some questions as you have them, and I'll join you later on in the rest of the webinar. Thanks, everybody.
And thank you, Matt, for that. Great introduction and really a great segue into what we're doing here today, kicking off the Flows Challenge track. So I'm going to start with just an overview of NextCycle Michigan before we're talking about the track, because I want to give some context. So as Matt mentioned, NextCycle Michigan is one of the newest and exciting programs of EGLE. And it's really the first of its kind for Michigan. So it's a collaboration between EGLE, Resource Recycling Systems, RRS, the Michigan Recycling Coalition, and Centropolis Accelerator. And what it is at its core is a market development strategy aimed at stimulating and accelerating circular economy projects through partnership facilitation, technical support, capacity building, and access to public and private funding opportunities. So, just real quick, circular economy, as I'm sure most of you know, is a system based on principles of shifting a linear take, make, waste model to a model that keeps materials in use either industrially as an input for a manufactured product or through regenerative natural systems, such as the utilization of compost as soil amendment, things of that nature. So, this is all kind of linked to the trusty waste hierarchy, reduce, reuse, recycle concepts here is all kind of encapsulated in this circular economy concept. As Matt alluded to, this is a data-driven project. So there was a gap analysis done a couple of years ago and an economic impact analysis done by the state that indicated, as Matt alluded to, that Michigan has been a low performer when it comes to just recycling in general and landfill diversion. In 2015, it was at 15% of materials generated in Michigan being diverted from landfill or incineration. We've made some progress, and the last study was at 18%. So we've already seen some progress, but the state has set an aggressive goal in the nearer term to double this, and in longer term to triple it to 45%. How are we going to get there? And then this program was actually developed as a key tool to do so by setting up 6 innovation challenge tracks focused on different aspects of the material reuse and recovery systems. So each of these 6 challenges are guided by this data, and one of them here is the food, liquids, and organic waste systems, the flows track, which we'll be discussing today. As Matt mentioned, organics is a huge piece of this puzzle. 38% of what is landfilled in the state is organic material, and there are alternative management practices to rescue food or process into compost or renewable energy through anaerobic digestion. In addition to that, the effort promotes diversity, equity, and inclusion as a priority, as it seeks to promote projects and businesses that advance jobs, recycling access, supporting businesses in underserved communities, both urban and rural. And this all is kind of wrapped around helping the state meet its recycling goals of 30% in the near term and 45% in the longer term. Not to mention the other additional environmental impacts aligning with the governor's climate goals and economic impacts aligning with the Michigan Back to Work initiatives in order to create, grow, and preserve Michigan jobs. So why innovation challenges, right? So the premise of this challenge track model is to identify and accelerate project or business plans to create a more robust pipeline of shovel-ready ventures ripe for public and private investment that will help Michigan move towards these circular economy goals. Research has proven that keeping materials in the circular economy generates more jobs and associated economic benefits than simply disposing in landfills, while also reducing greenhouse gas emissions and generating other environmental benefits. To highlight this, we ran a study, this economic impact analysis, to indicate, what are the impacts of increasing the recycling rate. As you'll see here, over 130,000 jobs in Michigan, $9 billion in labor income, and $33.8 billion in economic output. This all kind of is starting to approach the transportation and tourism industry in terms of output. So, this is no small opportunity here in front of us. So now to the good stuff. We'll talk about the Flows Innovation Challenge. And right here is just the challenge statement. It's very basic and broad, intentionally so. So teams are challenged to improve Michigan's organic waste recovery and reduction or processing systems. We intentionally are casting a broad net because many aspects of this system are in need of support. However, through this research that's been done, some priority has been identified through the gap analysis. So what we're looking at here are some gaps that have been identified with this waste stream. As I mentioned, key number, 38% of the material disposed of in Michigan is organic and compostable. For the state to meet these targets, the rate of recovery that's occurring today will need to quadruple. The largest gap in the system is food waste, followed by wood waste. And to illustrate that, there are 150 composting facilities in the state. 8 of them accept food waste. And all of these require local solutions because this is a heavy material. Economically, it does not work to send it far afield. So this requires solutions all over the state in many areas, rural and urban. So in conclusion, the needs are related to collection, processing, and end market demand. So all those parts of the value chain are needed for improvement. And so you can move on, Kelly. So in short, yard waste recovery is very good because, and that's that 142 compost facilities focus on yard waste, and that's a policy-driven thing. But food and wood recovery needs improvement. So really, we're looking for projects that focus on those gaps there. What are the benefits of participating in this program? So first of all, it's growth opportunity. So this program seeks to expand ideas of what teams can do, how they can incorporate innovation and best practices, how they can better build partnerships, get more investment, expand their scope, become ready for expansion, for scaling up, really into a greater solution than they thought initially possible. This can be accomplished through one-on-one consulting and mentorship from industry experts, in addition to an intensive boot camp designed to refine and hone the project into a winning pitch. Next up is network. So we've developed an expansive network for NextCycle Michigan, and it encompasses most of the key players focused on organic recovery in the state. So we will be working with individual teams to kind of foster and develop those relationships while connecting them with the broader ecosystem. So we're talking, not only industry experts, but investors, early adopters for new products, potentially, customer bases and other partners to grow their projects. And then last but not least is funding. So there is a real opportunity of funding through this program. And that includes a dedicated award pool for teams that have the winning pitch out of this cohort. In addition to, and that's a public and private funded award pool. In addition, there are earmarked Eagle recycling infrastructure and market development grants for teams that go through this program. There's $400,000 that is actually earmarked for teams that have gone through this program for this year. In addition, there are private funders that are going to be participating in this, and our partners and mentors that will be watching these pitches, and they are eager to find opportunities for funding and investment. So here is just a brief timeline of how this kind of track program will look. So right now we're in this early engagement for recruiting, but you see here April 30th, that's the key date. That's when the application opens for this track, followed by the team selection. So the application period will be open April 30th to June 4th. I'll give you some more information at the end of this about how to access that. And then by July, we'll be selecting a cohort of up to 8 teams to run through this program. This first couple months is that one-on-one recruiting and mentorship, and then the boot camp is going to be in early September. We're hoping to have it in person, but we're not sure what the landscape's going to look like, so we're prepared to do it virtually if that's what's required. And then in October is the pitch session. So each team at that point has had the support, built their capacity, honed their plan, and they're going to be pitching their new and improved concept to earn that award pool funding, get the eye of Eagle and private and investors as well. And then in December, the challenge winners will be announced. So that's really what we're looking at. It's kind of through the rest of the year, with that July through October as the key programming period for teams that are participating. So when we talk about eligibility, this is in terms of who we will be considering for this cohort. It's pretty simple and broad. So first of all, it needs to be Michigan based. So the team or business can be based elsewhere, but the project or venture needs to be focused on Michigan waste materials, Michigan organic waste materials. It can really, as we mentioned, it's a broad scope. It can focus on any aspect of organic diversion, recovery, reuse, and that includes food rescue, repurposing, composting, anaerobic digestion, things of that nature. We mentioned that prioritization of food and wood waste, especially food waste. You can still apply if you're focusing on other aspects of organic waste, but that's where the selection criteria will come in, and which we'll talk about in a minute. As far as number 3, technically proven. So we are not looking at novel technologies. There's a different challenge track, recycling innovation technology, that focuses on that, on earlier stage projects. So we do want to see that this is a concept that has been technically proven, perhaps not at scale. And so this is an opportunity for scaling up, but it's not a brand new technology. And then last but not least, we are looking for projects that have the potential to be financially self-sufficient. Again, not necessarily as they're applying, but they need to demonstrate a pathway to get there. And this program is going to help them kind of realize that vision. And whether it's a business, government, or nonprofit, we are looking for projects and ventures that are eventually going to be self-sustaining. So selection criteria. This is how we will be. This is how we will be selecting teams to go in. So, addresses a system need, market potential, financial viability, equity impact, economic impact, environmental climate impact, and then the project team. So I'm not going to go into detail here. You're going to see a lot more information in the application packet when that comes out, but just to give you a preview of what we're looking for when we're selecting teams. And again, this is just an example of types of teams that we can see. We're looking at, businesses, organizations, governments, universities, and cross-section partnerships. And so this is not an exhaustive list. If you're working or have an idea to work with organic materials, you can potentially be a team. And we are really emphasizing collaborations and cross-section partnerships and partnerships along the value chain. So that is one thing that we want to emphasize. And so now, we're going to go into some examples. So success will have many faces, and there's a lot of different opportunities, as I mentioned, to address these issues. And like I said, to quadruple what we're processing now, it's going to take a lot all over the board. And so while the examples are endless, we're gonna dig into a couple organizations that have developed innovative solutions for organic recovery in the state. And so, while NextCycle is brand new, and in future years, we'll be highlighting teams that have gone through this track. These 2 examples that we're going to talk about today, we're viewing kind of as proxies for the types of projects that we envision NextCycle supporting. They each reflect a different solution and different organizational structure. So one is a team driven by a local government, and the other is a private company. They've both leveraged innovation and partnership to overcome a specific flows challenge. And so I'm going to pass it over to Lindsay Walker at Emmett County to talk about the development of a food scrap collection program and composting program at Emmett County. So Lindsay, over to you.
Thank you. Can everybody see me? Okay. Here we go. Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Lindsay Walker, Emmett County Recycling. I've been with Emmett County Department of Public Works since 2007, so 13 years now. Today, I'm just going to talk to you a little bit about our food scrap collection program that we started back in 2015. And it's going to be a fast and furious presentation full of a lot of content and pictures of kids holding carrots and all those good things. So bear with me. If there's ever any questions, obviously you can put them in the Q&A, and I'm more than happy to follow up with any businesses or organizations that are interested in knowing more about how we did our program. Okay, so where to begin? We always recommend that you start with what you have, right? What are the resources or the assets that you have with your own program? In our case, we in Emmett County, a very local piece of policy, which is our solid waste ordinance, is a pay-as-you-throw system. So I just would like to highlight like a little bit of a snapshot of a bigger picture, because pay-as-you-throw is an incentivized waste diversion system. So it incentivizes any programs, whether it be recycling or organics systems, to divert that material from a landfill environment. So that's the piece of policy that we have an ordinance in the absence of state and federal policy that says that organics must go elsewhere beyond the landfill. I must mention that in Michigan, we also have our yard waste ban, which is a great piece of state policy that has created, and as Bryce kind of highlighted in his presentation, and the Michigan flows gaps, the yard waste infrastructure was pretty good in the state of Michigan, whereas the food scrap diversion is not so great. So working with what we have here in Michigan, we do have a system set up for yard waste composting and collection. And so based on that system, we do have a lovely yard waste composting facility at the Emmett County facility, and we make a beautiful compost product. So here you see some of our old windrows from back in the day when we started our food scrap program in 2015. And here you see at our tipping wall, some lovely yard waste waiting to be composted. We also produce a very good product. So we have a lovely we have a lovely finished compost product. And we were looking at ways, we have a very carbon intensive program. So we have a lot of leaves. So the feedstock that we've been working with traditionally since, the early 2000s is primarily leaves, very few grass clippings. So not a lot of nitrogen in a yard waste drop-off system. And so this program was already solid, and we were looking for opportunities to expand that system. Public-public partnerships. We had this under our belt at the time. We have really good relationships with our municipalities based on our curbside recycling program, but also with the yard waste drop-off sites. So here you see on the left-hand side a picture of the city of Petoskey using our 40-yard roll-off, their loader, and we pick up their yard waste from that drop site since about 2014 on a once-a-week basis, April through November. And then you see the picture on the right-hand side would be the Harbor Springs municipal yard waste drop-off. And here in this picture, we had hired some excavators in their gravel trains to haul the yard waste to our site. So basing it on relationships that we already had. And then, of course, we had a group of commercial curbside recycling customers. We have over 300 commercial recycling customers in the Petoskey and Harbor Springs area that were ready for that next low-hanging fruit. So here you see Stafford's systems, Stafford's Hospitality. They have 3 dining locations. All of them participate in our food scrap and our curbside recycling program. Here you see a representative of the Wine Guys group, also 3 businesses, restaurants, and they are recycling and composting with us based on those relationships that they love their curbside recycling service. They love the convenience, and now they were just hungry for that next low-hanging fruit, no pun intended. Okay, we had collection infrastructure. Of course, the collection infrastructure that we had in our facility was basically around curbside recycling and drop site recycling. So here you see a picture in 2015 of a drop site bin that we had modified. 30-yard sizer is an older model hook lift truck. You can see the truck there and the operator. We installed the new Perkins cane lift. We installed a spray wash tank, and we purchased 60 new 64-gallon Cascade curbside organics carts. And this is what comprised our collection infrastructure for our model program. Here you see a picture of the truck tipping the food scraps, flour scraps, and paper compostable ware that we had collected. And I believe this route, one day of route worth is about 3,860 pounds of food scraps collected from those businesses. We had $50,000 of seed money. So that came from our Department of Public Works board. And so you can see that we had our list of expenses. Now, a lot of these were capital expenses that we had to buy up front, but that wouldn't be continual expenses from year to year. So with that $50,000 seed money, we were able to purchase equipment and all of the things that you see here, and including the driver's wages for that pilot program that first year, fuel costs, truck depreciation, the full gamut. We quantified it all. And we were left with a couple of $1,000s left over from that $50,000 seed money. And what was the other thing we had? We had educational resources, a plethora of educational resources, from BioCycle to the Environmental Protection Agency to the United States Composting Council. There's no need to reinvent the wheel again and again and again. And for us, this EPA's food recovery hierarchy was really our guiding light. How do we keep the top of that pyramid, food waste reduction, at the forefront? How can we build a program that takes this pyramid into consideration in every aspect, whether it's education, collection, composting? How do we keep that at the forefront? And of course, lastly, we had a vision. We had a vision of what we wanted our program to look like, And so a vision obviously is necessary in the process to, defining what you really want to do. What are your big dreams? And so going back here again, sorry, folks, I don't mean to be taking you back and forth. It's like a little bit like whiplash. So dream big for what you want to achieve. In our goals, in our minds, we wanted a comprehensive year-round food scrap collection and composting service. We had a vision of a beautiful, hyper-local, closed-loop food recovery system that reflected the EPA's food recovery hierarchy. We envisioned a circular economy of organics management in our community as a model for what was possible or what could be replicable for other communities and other public and private sector entities. And then you dream big, but you start small and realistic with the pilot program. So a lot of the innovation that we had employed here is definitely replicable, but obviously we're a specific kind of context in a specific situation. So all of these things led to what was our pilot program. So in 2015, I should back up. In 2014, we piloted with resource recycling systems and did a feasibility study. So the food waste collection feasibility study kind of gave us a framework from some really smart people of how we could systematically go about recovering food scrap. Should we do residential? Should we do commercial? Should we do residential and commercial? What were the different kind of models that we could employ in our program? So in 2015, the year after RRS had completed their feasibility study in March, and we launched our pilot program in June of that year. And so this is some of the branding and some of the language that we used. This is actually a sticker that's on the front of our one of the sides of our food scrap truck. And then we provided this as a window cling for the businesses that had participated in the pilot program. Okay, next slide. And basically our goal, so I want to start with one of the objectives of that as well, was we wanted to further organics diversion and expand our composting operations by piloting a commercial food scrap collection in the form of a 20-week pilot program. Something small and nimble and easily manageable. So testing our education and outreach efforts, testing the effectiveness of commercial food scrap collection service, and then testing our ability to integrate food scraps into our existing yard waste composting operations. So lots of very lofty goals there for sure. So in the first year, with that first 20-week pilot program, we collected 90,000 pounds of food scraps from our different participating businesses. By 2016, we decided to do a phase 2 of the program. So May through October, we collected about 250,000 pounds. Then we tried a winter pilot that year because, of course, trying to compost in northern Michigan, it has all kinds of challenges. So November of 2016 through April of 2017, which is our winter here in Northwest Michigan, we were able to collect another 147,000 pounds. So that phase of the pilot collected 400,000 pounds. So absolutely doubled our volumes in 1 year. Excuse me. And then by 2017, we were, or 2016 and 2017, after that second phase 2, at the end of that year, we always share with our customers what their participation rates were. When we collect their food scraps, we're looking in their cart, we're saying their cart is quarter full, it's half full, it's 3/4 full, it's full. And so we quantify those numbers, we track and aggregate all that data. And so we're always sharing with our customers, look at what you did, just you, Julian Tomatoes, in the last year by participating in our program. And here are some of the overall program totals. So you're sharing the big data as well as the smaller data. By 2017, it was a really big year for our program. Here's a sample of what I shared with one of our customers. That year we had reached, I think it was just under 1 million pounds of food scraps diverted. And we started with a grant-funded program called Give All Food a Future. So Give All Food a Future is our residential food scrap, food waste reduction and education and food scrap collection campaign. So here you see a picture of the grant funded money from the Petoskey Harbor Springs Area Community Foundation. They gave us a nice sum of money as well as some seed money that we had left over from our other pilot. And so with this, we were targeting farmers markets. You see pictures of kids putting in their carrot tops from the carrots they had just bought from Farmer Joe down the way. And so this was another example of leveraging local funding and a community foundation that is more than happy to invest in composting and farmers markets and fresh food and getting all those things out into our community. So another opportunity there. By 2018, we had reached 1 million pounds of food scraps collected. And here's an example of our farmers market. So this is all the residential food waste, essentially going in, is folded into our regular commercial curbside collection program. And now we're gaining some more ground with the residential waste stream, realizing that, wow, residential food scraps are much higher in the municipal waste stream than the commercial. By 2019, Emmett County Recycling had given its Recycler of the Year award, to the Back Lot Petoskey. It is a zero waste food truck establishment. This was our first year officially experimenting with BPI certified compostable ware. The Back Lot sources that for all of its food trucks from Bay Area Recycling for Charities. They sell the world-centric BPI certified compostable products. So you're making these moves to different kinds of establishments, and businesses are like, we want to be zero waste. How do we do that? Well, the only way you can get to zero waste is through comprehensive food scrap collection. And so by last year, 2020, we had reached 2 million pounds of food waste diverted from landfill. And our facility, which we have the Give All Food a Future carts drop there at our facility, it became like the most popular drop center in all of our program. So we quadrupled our volumes over the years as people became more aware of the opportunity to bring their food scraps to us. And that's basically it, folks, in a nutshell. I appreciate the time, and I have lots of inspiration in terms of for 2021. This year, we're working to grow, working with our municipalities and our local watershed council and our road commissions to get our finished compost product out to those organizations. A lot of that is grant funded. So the Watershed Council got money from the Petoskey Harbor Springs Area Community Foundation. And so that's some of the things that we hope to expand to. And our goal this year is to really sell out of our finished compost product. Thanks.
Well, Lindsay, thanks so much. That's a great presentation. And you know, what I really liked about it is that, you know, you weren't starting from scratch. You had a system already for the yard waste, and you're adding food waste to kind of build upon that existing success and expand impact. And you kind of had a big vision and then figured out short-term steps to get there realistically. And you're continuing to kind of take a step-by-step approach. So that was some takeaways that I had. So now I'm going to pass it over to Country Oaks Landscaping, where we have President Mark Cherry and Organics Maven Amy Freeman. So if you two could take it away.
Oh, hi. Thanks, Bryce. Mark Cherry, President of Country Oaks Landscape Supply, and here I have Amy Freeman.
Hi there, I'm Amy Freeman, Country Oaks Landscape Supply and Composting, and I'm the organics maven here.
Okay. We are actually not a landscaping company. We are a landscape supply company. We just strictly manufacture bulk products like compost, soil blends, mulches, and we are also a distributor of grass seeds, fertilizers, and hardscaping products. So in our composting system, we used a system, an aerated static pile system. What that means is basically we have an aerated system where when we're composting, we pull air through the piles, and we can do negative aeration, basically pulling air through the piles, or positive aeration, pushing the air back through the piles. This is the inside of our aeration system. In here, we can close off. We have a section of 8 rows. We can pull from certain rows and pass it to others, and also we can collect the heat that comes off the composting process, which generally runs between 140 and 160 degrees. Inside here, you see 2 heat exchangers on the other end of the blowers there that will transfer the heat off the compost into a glycol loop that we can run through the floors of our buildings and into other structures. All right. This next picture here is the screen. On the screen, we can monitor oxygen levels, CFMs through the piles. We can monitor the temps. I can see here on this particular slide, we are bringing in temperatures of 162 degrees in the front of the heat exchanger, and the air that's exiting the heat exchanger is 144 degrees. So we basically pulled 18 degrees off of that hot vapor to pump through the floor of our warehouse. We're at 5.1% oxygen level, which means that's a fresh pile, and oxygen demand is pretty intense there for the compost. See, oh, thank you. Oh, this is our biofilter. So basically, when our piles are fresh, the oxygen demand is high, and they burn up the oxygen quickly. And when the piles get under, when the microbes get under 10%, they start to release odors and ammonia, hydrogen sulfide, hydrogen oxide, methane, those kinds of odors. And we pump that air through this biofilter here, which scrubs the air of those noxious odors. Because before we moved to this system, we were stinking out the neighborhood for miles. No matter how well we managed the piles, we just gave off a lot of odors. So this system allows us to not only collect the heat off of the compost, but and increase our process efficiency. We're not burning a bunch of diesel composting anymore. And instead, we're able to control a lot of the parameters and see what we're making, make sure we're meeting the process to further reduce pathogens, PFRPs, which is essentially we're killing off pathogens and weed seeds that are in our compost, which is very important for our end use products. Okay. We also, this here is a Windrow Turner, and this is still part of our process, but we do it after we're on the, it comes off the aerated static pile. We find that running this over the windrows twice after coming off the ASP system is a good way to homogenize a product and make sure that all facets of our compost meet PFRPs, and we get the weed seeds and pathogens. As far as end use products, I bought this machine here to make compost socks, and it also has the benefit of being a mini bagging plant at the same time. So to mitigate the cost of the compost sock machine, which you see that long tube on the side there, that's an attachment that fits to the side of the machine to make the socks. We can also bag, and we already have a market for bulk products and bag products. So this machine lent itself nicely to us for mulches and soil blends and composts. And here you can see the attachment on the side of the rotobagger making compost socks. And on the right, you will see a product developed by Rod Tyler called Garden Socks, as was Compost Socks, originally designed by Rod Tyler too. But garden socks are essentially little 2 to 3 foot tubes, and we can put any type of blend we want in those, and you can do any type of gardening anywhere. You can put it on your patio, you can put it on your driveway, you can run a water tape through it, and you can grow literally anywhere. It's great for urban gardening. People who just have a deck, you can put a garden sock down and plant directly into it, and it's pretty cool little marketing thing that we can market to homeowners and garden centers. All right. Oh, and here's an example of compost socks. One is on, there's a series of 2 on a slope to slow water speed going down a pretty steep slope there. And the other one is for sediment control. As the water passes through, the compost sock will pick up sediment, phosphorus, nutrients, other things that we'd like to keep out of our watershed and water systems. We think that there's a good market here in the state for compost socks, as we are pretty addicted in the state to using silt fence. We think compost socks are a much better option, essentially for the environment, and especially our Great Lakes, which are struggling now with too much phosphorus and getting algae blooms in dead zones. As a matter of fact, the picture you saw, Amy, on the front was on Lake Erie, where they have a chronic problem with algae blooms in dead zones from agricultural runoff, which compost socks can help curb. All right, next. Okay, this is a couple of the products that we made at Country Oaks. One is a high growth planting mix. Basically, we take our compost and we'll blend that with different things like composted cow manure, Michigan red pine fines, sphagnum peat moss, all kinds of things to make. And I got with an agronomist to put this together. I didn't just randomly put it together, but it's a great blend that lends itself nicely as an amendment, or you can plant directly in. And on the left is our grade A compost. It's just our straight STA certified compost. And STA is a program that the United States Composting Council has. It's the seal of testing assurance. Basically, we get our compost tested quarterly to make sure that we comply with their stringent testing. And we find that works well for us as a marketing tool for our products. Oh, I'm going to let Amy talk a little bit about Landscape for the Lakes and compost use in the agriculture market.
Hey there, I know our time is really short and limited, but I just want to put out there a little bit of information on a project that we're involved in at the state level, which is the Landscape for the Lakes project. And Mark alluded to with the compost socks and filter socks, some of the information on that. The Landscape for the Lakes is a project that is not just landscaping for the lakes, but the whole landscape of the lakes and the great state of Michigan. And it is working we are working with many people to develop markets within Michigan. Some of them are in the landscape market, as well as in standards for green infrastructure, much far-reaching composting and agriculture. And I want to talk just briefly about us at Country Oaks. What we're working on is reaching out to agriculture and farming, helping farmers to lessen the chemical inputs that are going on the farms, and increasing compost use and inputs that are much safer for farms to be using. So I wanted to touch base on that a little bit, and then just pass it back over to Mark, as far as I know he's going to wrap up. We did not show many slides of our actual site. We're a 26-acre compost site. We manage a lot of wood waste and mulch in our operation as well. And we do mulch, as Mark mentioned that too. But some of the mulch some of the wood scraps go into our composting operation, as well as our filter socks too. And then we manage yard waste, or the yeah, we're a yard waste diversion site for a processing for Genesee County too. So we have a very large operation on 26 acres in the city of Burton, and we're very high tech, and we're really proud of what we do. And I'll pass it over to you, Mark.
Yeah, so what you see here is we do a lot of tub grinding and wood waste reduction, and here we're actually grinding Michigan pine, and we're we're grinding directly into our screening plant and pulling the fines out for some of our soil blends, and the overs go out for landscape beds. Okay, next. I'm just going to take you through our site, and you can see some of the mulching areas and other things. So in the back here, this is where we're grinding. We're grinding primary grind directly into our screeners and colorizers, and what comes out after our grind goes through this whole system, and a dyed mulch comes out the other side. Okay, next. These are some of the products we make. You can see how it comes in on the left there. Massive piles of brush and chips and logs. And then you can see in the back picture there's the primary grind. That's where we reduce it into that. And then we regrind it again and colorize it into different products and natural mulches. And as Amy said, we take some of the fines out of these products and we use it as a carbon source for our composting operation. Okay, next. Oh, and this is part of our byproduct of our compost operation. Kevin, who's the production manager at our facility, and I were discussing late last year what we could do with some of the extra heat of this compost facility. So we decided that a greenhouse would be awesome. And I took it to the next level, and I wanted to do a full circular type of product. So this is actually an Aquaponics Lab. And underneath of all that cement and those troughs are radiant tubes to heat that greenhouse all winter long from compost power. And we're going to heat the water with the compost power also. And this is the stage that we're at here. We just got a few more tanks in. Basically, we're going to have 2,000 gallon fish tanks with about 1,000 blue Nile tilapia that we will feed with organic products. They will essentially, their waste will go into clarifiers, and we will turn the nitrates that and ammonia they produce into nitrates that will flow through these troughs and feed leafy green plants that we plan to sell into the market. And that concludes our presentation here, and I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mark and Amy. Really, really great presentation. And again, kind of what I see here that I really liked is, you're building on existing success and kind of bringing in new technology to improve, your process efficiency, improve the impact with the community as far as the odor is concerned, and then develop new products to access additional markets. So with the bagging and the compost socks, that's expanding your market, allowing you to expand your impact, and utilizing partnership along the way to develop those new products. So those are the kind of takeaways that I see there that really fit into the theme of NextCycle. We got about 10 minutes left, and so before I invite everyone back to kind of have a little panel discussion, I do want to just mention, that what we're here for today is to announce this track opening. And so application period opens about 2 weeks from now, April 30th. There's the link right there, nextcyclemichigan.com/apply. There's about a 5-week application period. So you'll have about 5 weeks to handle that. And let's see, one thing that I want to mention before, I forget is there is another application open right now, and I would be remiss if I didn't mention the micros track. So that's $10,000 small grant program, and that is actually open right now. So if you go to that link right now, the nextcycle.com/apply, there is that track open. So if that might be a fit for you, look into that. Can move on to the next one. So just want to mention, as you are thinking of applying or preparing to apply, there are some really good resources on the NextCycle Michigan website. That includes different stuff, a resource library that includes that gap analysis and a lot of other resources. And then some stories, such as the two that you heard today. There's some stories highlighted that kind of exemplify the type of projects that we're looking for and can help to inspire and give you some ideas for how to approach this. And last but not least, as you're going through this application process, if you do have any questions, don't hesitate reaching out. We want this to be we want to reduce barriers for participation. And so we are here to help. There's an email address that you can send it to, nextcyclemi@recycle.com. And then I'm setting up office hours. So this is once the application period opens, there's going to be office hours where you can set an appointment with me 20 minutes at a time, and we can sit down and I can help kind of walk you through the process, because it is an online application and it might be something new to you. And so just want to make sure that you have all the tools that you need to apply. So we are going to be assisting there. So now I will kind of ask the other panelists to turn on their cameras, and we're going to have a little Q&A session. Okay, and so first and foremost, I do want to get kind of Matt's perspective, from those presentations that you saw from Emmett and Country Oaks. What were your key takeaways, and what themes do you see there that you think are really important for NextCycle?
Yeah, I think that the stories that both Lindsay and Mark and Amy told highlight the importance of collaboration through that supply chain. When we talk about supply chain in the recycling world, we're talking about, from the curb to the processor to the user, and then into a new product. On the organic side, we're talking about the same thing. And we also get to tell the story of these other really cool connecting pieces about climate and soil and water and energy that make the organics stories even as cool as any of the other ones. When you were making that connection between water quality, Amy, I think it was, and talking, Mark, about the filter socks, telling that story that this isn't just about keeping stuff out of a hole in the ground, right? It's about making sure that we are protecting our climate, we are protecting our water, and we're creating jobs. And so both those stories were exactly why, you're good at this, guys. You really are, telling the story about how that connects in. And so anybody that's looking to have a successful project should be able to make those connecting pieces as well.
Thanks, Matt. That's great insight. I have a question for both of the panelists, Lindsay and Amy and Mark. Both of you have kind of taken a step-by-step approach, building on success that you've had in the past. I'm just curious, are you considering applying for the Flows Challenge? And if so, how are you approaching that?
I'll start. I think that we would consider applying for the Flows Challenge. I think we would really have to figure out what's the most kind of shovel-ready aspect to the project. Just looking over like the kind of the guidelines for what you folks are looking for in those projects is helpful, and it can probably spark a lot of ideas I have. I would think that applying for the Flows Track Challenge might be something we would do in terms of how to better handle our wood waste stream, because we are a brush drop-off site as well. So, there's some ideas out there about creating a biochar product. Is that something that we could do with $1,000 piece of equipment, or, how could we scale and do another kind of small pilot program? So I would think that something like that might be applicable to the Flows Challenge.
Great, that's a good preview. Mark, Amy, any thoughts on your end?
Well, to be honest, I haven't even looked into it yet. We've just been we've been busy doing our thing, and we're trying to make products and processes that are actually viable in the market, and we can actually generate income and profits from. But I'd be happy to look into the program and participate in it.
We've also considered the possibility of a public-private partnership, some kind of partnership, linking up with somebody that would want to link up with us too. And springtime is the busiest time, of course, for composters. I mean, we're all crazy busy making and getting compost out the door right now.
So just to follow up there, Amy, when you talk about partnership, and maybe there's people on the call that could be, what kind of partnership are you looking for?
One of the things that we like to entertain is more space. And so maybe someone that has a compost operation or that is thinking about a compost operation at their municipality.
Great.
Yeah, we're finding we're having a lot of success with our products between our soil blends and everything else we're doing, and we move everything that we manufacture, and we're very fortunate that way. And we're always looking for more organics.
More organics.
Yep. Well, and that's something that, we see NextCycle is really supporting is, finding, making those connections with partnership, finding new outlets and new markets, and, using the process to help take that next step. So we would love to see an application from either of you. So keep thinking of that. And if there's any partners on the call that want to reach out, you can reach out to Mark and Amy and go through NextCycle if you need some contact info. One question that just came in: when are micros applications due? Since I did mention that, I believe May 19th is the due date, but you'll be able to find all that on the website. So we have about 2 minutes left, and one question that had come in is, what makes an application compelling? And I think that's a question for me probably. And so, I've kind of thought about this a bit, and I have 4 things that make an application compelling. So first and foremost, does it clearly address a need? And so we talked about that gap analysis. Does it address a need? And so I think really relying on that, reading through the gap analysis will be important, and finding and defining what that need is. Is the proposal viable? We have the industry experts that are helping to select these teams, and they're going to be able to see, is this actually a viable proposal? And so we want to look at that, we like wild ideas, but we want it to be really grounded in reality. Third, partnership. We've mentioned this a couple of times, but we really want to see partnership. And so the extent that you can demonstrate that there is partnership, especially along the value chain, from, the feedstock inputs and from, the market on the back end, is really important, but with, local and regional actors. And then finally, number 4, does it demonstrate strong potential for broad impact? So we do, we're looking at something that's scalable. So even if it's a smaller project to begin, if it demonstrates, potential for scaling in the long run, that's really important for us to see. So, so that's it. So one more question I just saw come in. So if you have a food waste stream, but not a partner to recycle it, and I think that is something where maybe early outreach to us it would make sense, because then we can try to find that partnership. In addition, there is an opportunity. You'll see pretty soon on the website a concept proposal opportunity where you can put what your idea is, and if it's not quite ready for the Flows Challenge, because this is the first year and there's going to be multiple years, it may be that you're not ready yet, but we're invested in helping to find those partnerships, and so reach out to us and we can see if there's connections to be made, and so that's a really good approach. We are at time. I think we covered everything. I don't see any more questions here.
Just real quick, Bryce, there was a question in there from, it was in the chat about education and training efforts. So I think for anything, if we're going to talk about a successful project, having an educational component is an important one. Sustainability of the project obviously needs to be thought through to make sure that it's not just like pilot projects without any future probably aren't going to have a lot of success, but pilot projects that get us to the next stage. So so to answer your question specifically, I think if you were able to demonstrate that the project had those outcomes that we were talking about earlier with water quality, jobs, climate impact, then it would increase its chances. But just on its surface, trying to read between the lines, if it was just an educational campaign, then I don't think it would elevate itself to a point that would have those partnerships. So, but that's okay, because part of NextCycle is to get it to that next level, to make sure that it's sustainable, to make those connections between partners. So just because my answer is probably no, that doesn't mean that it's no in the end, because this is a alternative process. And so I want to say one quick thing. We have the market development grants, and one of them was mentioned. Those are the shovel ready project. Those are still coming. Those will be available. But this is to take that project, make better connections, get good data, and then make it fundable down the road. So, Mike, your question about is an educational training for backyard compost, is that an idea that could have success? Likely with additional work that would come through the process of NextCycle. So hopefully I didn't go over time with that.
Yeah, we are at time, and I think hopefully that answered the question. And Melissa, is there anything else that we need to do to wrap things up, or?
Well, first, thank you to all of our panelists, and thank you, Bryce, for hosting and moderating for us. Much appreciated. I want to remind everybody, please go to nextcyclemichigan.com. There you will see information on all of the tracks, as well as timelines to let you know when applications are going to be available. You can download application packets once they are available. It gives you lots of information on what is needed, the criteria, the eligibility. Plus, Bryce mentioned you can reach out and talk to us if you have questions about specific ideas. So please, nextcyclemichigan.com, make sure you write it down, click on it in the chat box. I think I've posted it a few times, but get over to that website, check it out. Lots of ways to participate, whether it be an actual team, whether you want to help fund something, we were looking for investors as well, or if you just want to be an ambassador and share this information about a fabulous program that really is trying to make a difference in the state. So thank you again, everybody, for attending today and participating. I hope everybody has a great rest of their day. Stay safe out there.